If you like the grossest, most disturbing fairy tales, you're gonna love Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus, and you're gonna be one of the few people that do. Most people hate it. One of the reasons is because of the excessive gore, so content warning, everything. SA, mutilation, cannibalism, it's gross. It's set in these fictional times of the Roman Empire, and the emperor has just died, and his two sons, Saturninus and Basileus, are arguing over who gets to take over. Marcus Andronicus, our title guy's brother, shows up, and he says, guess what? Actually, the new emperor should be my brother, Titus. He is just coming back from his successful campaign against the Goths, and the people are celebrating him. Goths being ancient pagan Germanic people. Titus arrives with his prisoner, the queen of the Goths, Tamara. Also with her are her three sons, Alarbus, Chiron, and Demetrius, and her lover, known as Aaron the Moor, because he is a Moor. He is African. The first thing Titus does is murder Tamara's oldest son to avenge the deaths of apparently 21 of his own sons during the war. And he has a lot of sons because he still has 4 more we're gonna meet in this play. Now this is a mistake because Tamara and her lover Aaron and her 2 remaining sons, Chiron and Demetrius, pretty much vow vengeance against Titus for this. So Titus actually refuses the throne. He says Saturninus should have it, and Saturninus is like, yeah, I agree with you. Also, I want to marry your daughter Lavinia. And Titus is like, cool, you can have her, even though the brother Basileus has already been betrothed to Lavinia. Titus's oldest son Lucius says this isn't a good idea, and he's like, I'll do what I want, and a fight breaks out, and Titus ends up killing another one of his other sons, Mutius. So Saturninus, the guy he previously supported, mocks him, exiles the whole Andronicus family, and then marries Tamara, the prisoner that Titus has brought back to humiliate him. And this is great for Tamara and her group because this will really help them get revenge. In fact, she gets Saturninus to pardon the Andronici, because she wants to keep them around so she can get her revenge. So the next day they're on a royal hunt, and Aaron, acting on Tamara's behalf, gets her 2 sons to kill Basileus, who's protecting Lavinia, so that they can then SA Lavinia. They throw Basileus' body into a pit, and they drag Lavinia into the woods and SA her. And to keep her from telling anyone what happens, they cut off her tongue and both of her hands, symbolically making her violation absolutely total. Before Titus has even found out about this assault, Aaron has written a letter framing Titus's 2 sons for the murder of Basileus. So Saturninus sentences them to die. Sometime later, Lavinia shows up at her dad's doorstep, and he realizes what has been done to her and everything that's happened. Because even though they've cut out her tongue and her hands, she is able to use a stick with her mouth and her stumps to write out what has happened to her and who did it. Aaron then shows up and says that Saturninus will forgive Titus's 2 sons if either the oldest son, Lucius, or Titus's brother, Marcus, cut off their left hand and send it back to him. Both Marcus and Lucius are willing to do this, but Titus is like, no, I'm gonna do it. So he cuts off his own hand, gives it to Aaron to take to Saturninus, but guess what? It was just a trick to make him give up his own hand, and they kill his sons anyway. So Titus tells his oldest son, Lucius, go leave the city and gather an army to come back and take over. In the meantime, Tamara, who remember is sleeping with Aaron, has given birth secretly to a mixed race baby, and their affair is going to be found out. Tamara actually wants to kill the baby, but Aaron kills the nurse who knows the secret instead and takes the baby and runs away to raise it among the Goths. Now Lucius, who's gone out to raise that army of the Goths, captures him and threatens to kill the baby unless Aaron tells him the whole plot, so Aaron does. And the baby is spared in one of the few breaths of mercy in this play. Back at home, Titus decides he's going to get revenge on Tamara's 2 sons who assaulted Lavinia. In what is definitely one of the most memorable scenes from the play, because this happens on stage, he restrains the 2 men, cuts their throats, and drains their blood into a basin held by the handless Lavinia. We'll talk about the different interpretations of this play, but obviously productions can go artistic or realistic with this stuff. He then tells Lavinia he's going to play the cook, grind up the men's bones, and have their heads turned into meat pies that he will then serve to their mother and make her eat without knowing. And if you're thinking, this is kind of great justice for Lavinia, it's nice that he involves her and she gets to see some revenge, Titus definitely does not care about Lavinia, and things are not going to go well for her. Everyone gathers for a feast the next day, and Titus asks Saturninus, hey, if your daughter were violated, should she be killed because of the whole honor killing thing? Saturninus says yes, so Titus kills Lavinia and then reveals what has happened to her. Saturninus is like, oh, I can't believe they did that. Bring those two men before me. And then Titus is like, ha ha, they've already been here. Y'all ate them in the pie. Suck it, Tamara. Then Titus kills Tamara, and then Saturninus kills Titus. Then Lucius comes in and kills Saturninus to avenge his father's death. He becomes emperor, and he orders that Titus and Saturninus get good burials. Oh, and Lavinia too. He gives her a good burial. But that Tamara's body is going to be thrown to wild beasts outside the city, and Aaron is going to be hanged. Aaron is unrepentant until the end. They bring him in for his execution, and he says, I just wish I'd done more evil during my lifetime. So instead of hanging him, they bury him chest deep and just let him die of starvation, thirst, exposure. And that's the end. A lot of this has many fairy tale elements. If you've studied them at all or watched my other videos, killing people and then feeding them to your enemies is very old. It's older even than fairy tales. The whole plot with Lavinia comes from a story about a girl named Philomena from Ovid's The Metamorphosis. And it kind of makes sense. As human beings, that's one of the most anti-human being, grotesque, taboo things we could do to another person is make them ingest the people they love. Eric Cartman does it in South Park. Hey babe, what's the name of the kid that Eric tricks into eating his own parents and then Radiohead laughs at him?
Scott.
Oh, it is Scott. It's Scott something.
Scott Tenorman. Fuck you, Scott Tenorman.
That's what it is. This was Shakespeare's first tragedy, and people argue a lot about it. Some people argue whether or not Shakespeare actually wrote it or wrote it alone. I mean, they argue that about lots of his plays, but they really argue that about this one because it's just not as good. Bloody revenge plays were very popular at the time he was writing this, and it seems very clear that he was just writing to impress people. And there isn't really any beautiful poetry or memorable lines like there are in lots of other Shakespeare's plays. It's been criticized for a while. The earliest one was from Edward Ravencroft in 1687. He said, "'Tis the most incorrect and indigested piece in all his works. It seems rather a heap of rubbish than a structure." 100 years later, Samuel Johnson said, "The barbarity of the spectacles and the general massacre which are all exhibited here can scarcely be conceived tolerable by any audience." T.S. Eliot in 1927 said it was one of the stupidest and most uninspired plays ever written. You know, the musical Cats is based on T.S. Eliot's poems, so I wonder what he'd think of that. But some people argue that it's not, and that it's definitely a play still worth staging. Julie Taymor, who's famous for first staging the Broadway production of The Lion King, staged a production of this in the late 90s. She also directed a movie version of it just called Titus with Anthony Hopkins playing Titus because she felt like it was the most important play at the time because she thought the violence and meaninglessness and chaos and mess of Titus really reflects our society now. I've never seen the movie, but Jessica Lange also plays Tamara. I'm sure it's good, but just the stuff with Lavinia, I don't think I can watch it. This still is from a 2006 Globe production of Titus that they did, and it's upsetting. And you can feel free to read it or watch it and make that judgment for yourself. As always, check out my book, A Reimagining of the 12 Dancing Princesses, a grim fairy tale, and my podcast, Folk Tales and Fairy Lore. Link is in the bio.